The explosion happened so fast that nobody had time to scream. One moment, the diplomatic station near Neptune was processing visa applications for 300 alien visitors. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of metal and frozen bodies tumbling through space. 847 humans died in that blast. Among them were teachers, doctors, children visiting their parents who worked as translators, and Ambassador Linda Hayes, who had spent 15 years trying to build bridges with the HFY Empire. Director James Okonkwo watched the security footage for the fifth time. His hands shook as he paused the video right before the HFY warship fired its main cannon. The ship had HFY military markings. There was no mistake about who did this. This was not an accident or a rogue captain. This was the third unprovoked attack in 6 months. "They are calling it an unfortunate incident," said Admiral Rebecca Walsh. She stood behind him with her arms crossed. Her voice was flat and cold. The Galactic Council sent another strongly worded letter. They condemned the violence. They urged restraint on both sides. "Both sides?" James turned to look at her. "We have not fired a single shot. Not one. Every time they attack us, we file reports and wait for justice that never comes." Rebecca nodded slowly. Outside the window of the Earth Defense Headquarters, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. 40 years ago, humanity had been so excited to join the galactic community. They had imagined sharing knowledge and exploring the stars together with dozens of alien species. Instead, they found a galaxy where might made right, where species like the HFY Empire could attack whoever they wanted because everyone else was too afraid to stop them. "The President is calling an emergency session," Rebecca said. "Every member of the Security Council will be there. I think the time for patience is over." James wanted to argue. He had spent his entire career in the diplomatic corps. He believed in negotiation and peaceful solutions, but he kept seeing the faces of the people who died. He kept thinking about the children. "What are you suggesting?" he asked quietly. "Protocol Polaris," Rebecca replied. "We stop pretending." 12 hours later, the Galactic Council received a message from Earth. It was not a long diplomatic document filled with legal language and requests for investigations. It was 17 words transmitted on every frequency. "This is your final warning. The next attack will be the last. We will not ask again." On the HFY throne world of Drakon, War Master Grendak read the human message and laughed. He was addressing his command staff in the Grand Strategy Room, where hundreds of previous victories had been planned. Holographic displays showed the locations of HFY fleets across a dozen systems. "The humans think they can threaten us," he said with amusement. "They have been in space for barely a century. They have no significant military. They hide behind their little moon colonies and talk about peace." He slammed his clawed hand on the table. "I say we teach them what happens to species who forget their place. Prepare the fleet. We will hit their colony at New Vancouver. Let them watch another 1,000 of their people die. Then perhaps they will learn to bow." His officers cheered and began issuing orders. None of them noticed the strange energy readings that were beginning to appear on Earth's moon. None of them saw the massive structures rising from beneath the lunar surface, where they had been hidden for decades. The HFY Empire had made calculations about human military strength based on what they could see. They never considered that humanity might be hiding something. On Earth, in a bunker 300 meters below the Swiss Alps, President Sarah Martinez addressed the assembled leaders of United Earth. Her face was tired. She looked like someone who had not slept in days. "For 40 years we made a choice," she said. "When we first encountered the galactic community, we saw endless wars. We saw empires built on conquest. We saw species enslaved and exploited. We decided we would be different. We would show them another way." She paused and looked at each person in the room. "We shared our art and our music. We offered medical technology and agricultural knowledge. We opened our worlds to refugees, and we hid our weapons." The holographic display behind her changed. It showed the far side of the moon. massive shipyards that had been constructed in secret over 4 decades, orbital platforms bristling with weapons systems that no other species had ever seen, asteroid bases throughout the solar system where humanity had built a fleet in the shadows. "We are not weak," Sarah continued. "We never were. We chose to appear harmless because we hoped others would choose peace. The Ravik Empire has shown us that hope was naive." Her voice grew harder. "Admiral Walsh, you are authorized to activate Protocol Polaris. Show them what politeness was hiding, but remember, we are still human. We do not kill unless we must. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. We defend. Is that understood?" Rebecca stood at attention. "Understood, Madam President." Across the solar system, human defense fleets began to move. Ships that had been waiting in the darkness powered up their reactors. Weapons that had been tested in secret were loaded and armed. Humanity had spent 40 years being patient. They had endured insults and attacks. They had filed complaints and attended peace conferences. They had done everything possible to avoid this moment. But there comes a time when patience runs out, when warnings must be backed by action, when being polite stops working and something else becomes necessary. The Ravik Empire was about to learn what humanity had been hiding, and the rest of the galaxy was about to understand why Earth had been so insistent on peace. Because when a species is truly capable of terrible violence and chooses peace anyway, that choice means something. But when that choice is thrown back in their face again and again, eventually the choice changes. War Master Grendak would reach New Vancouver in 3 days. He expected an easy victory against a weak opponent. He had no idea he was about to start a war that would reshape the entire galaxy, because humanity was not going to fight like the other species. They were not going to follow the rules of galactic warfare. They were going to fight like humans, and that made all the difference. New Vancouver was a small colony on the edge of human space. 20,000 people lived there, mostly farmers and miners who had come looking for a fresh start. The planet had good soil and plenty of water. Children played in streets that still smelled like new construction. Nobody expected to become a battlefield. Lucy Chen was teaching her class about Earth history when the alert sirens began. She was showing her students pictures of the old Great Wall when every screen in the school switched to emergency broadcast. A calm voice told everyone to proceed to the underground shelters immediately. No panic, no running, just like they had practiced. "Miss Chen, are the bad aliens coming?" asked a small boy named Tommy. He was 6 years old and still believed teachers could fix anything. Lucy wanted to lie. She wanted to tell him everything would be fine, but she had promised herself she would always be honest with her students. "Yes, Tommy, but remember what we talked about. There are people whose job is to protect us. They are very good at their jobs." High above the colony, defense satellites detected the Ravik fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 200 warships, enough firepower to crack a planet. The small defense force of New Vancouver consisted of 8 patrol boats and 2 outdated frigates. They launched anyway. Nobody expected them to win. They just needed to buy time for the civilians to reach shelter. Commander Patrick Stone commanded the frigate Liberty. He had fought in border skirmishes before but never faced anything like this. His sensors showed him the overwhelming numbers of the enemy fleet. War Master Grendak was broadcasting on all channels, demanding immediate surrender. "This is your only chance, humans," Grendak's voice boomed. "Surrender your colony to the Ravik Empire. Those who comply will be allowed to leave with their lives. Those who resist will be destroyed." Patrick looked at his crew, young men and women who had joined the defense force to protect their families. "Well," he asked them, "anyone want to surrender?" His weapons officer, a woman named Rachel Park, smiled grimly. "Sir, if we are going to die anyway, I would rather die making them work for it." The crew agreed. Patrick opened a channel to the Ravik fleet. "This is Commander Stone of New Vancouver Defense Force. My answer is no. If you want this colony, you will have to go through us." Grendak laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "So be it, you choose death." He gave the order to fire. The Hravik fleet opened up with everything. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The defense force fought back, but it was like throwing stones at a landslide. One by one, the patrol boats were destroyed. The Liberty took hit after hit. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Life support failing. Patrick knew they had minutes left at most. Then something changed. His sensor officer gasped. "Sir, I'm detecting new contacts. 20 ships just appeared at the edge of the system." "Hravik reinforcements?" Patrick asked, though he could not imagine why they would need more ships. "No, sir. The identification codes are reading as human, but I have never seen designs like this." On the Hravik flagship, Grendak received the same report. He pulled up the visual feed and stared. 20 human ships had indeed appeared, but they were nothing like the outdated vessels defending the colony. These were massive dreadnoughts with angular armor and weapons systems that did not match anything in the galactic database. They moved with disturbing grace for something so large. "What are those?" demanded Grendak. His tactical officer ran every scan. "Unknown design, unknown weapons, unknown power source. Sir, I cannot get a clear reading. It is like they are using some kind of stealth technology even while in plain sight." Grendak felt the first whisper of doubt. Then he crushed it. He had 200 ships. The humans had 20. Mathematics was simple. All vessels target the new arrivals, destroy them. The entire Hravik fleet turned and fired. Thousands of missiles and energy beams converged on the human dreadnoughts. It should have been overwhelming. It should have torn the human ships apart in seconds. Instead, the weapons simply splashed against shields that did not even flicker. Not a single human ship was damaged. For 5 full seconds there was silence as both sides processed what just happened. Then Admiral Rebecca Walsh's voice came over every communication channel. It was calm, almost gentle. That made it more terrifying. "War Master Grendak, this is Admiral Walsh of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You were warned. You chose to ignore that warning. What happens next is your responsibility, not ours." The human dreadnoughts opened fire. The weapons they used made no sense to galactic military science. Grendak watched as shells the size of small buildings accelerated to 40% of light speed and punched through Hravik shields like they were paper. His ship started dying. Not just damaged, completely destroyed. Cut in half by energy beams that burned hotter than stars. Crushed by what looked like artificial gravity fields that compressed warships into balls of scrap metal. His tactical officer was screaming numbers. Enemy weapons moving at .4 light speed. Energy output exceeding anything in our database. Point defense systems are tracking and destroying 98% of our missiles. Sir, they are not even trying hard. Their ships are only using 40% power output. Grendak finally understood. The humans had been lying, not about wanting peace, about being weak. They had spent 40 years pretending to be harmless newcomers while building weapons that made the rest of the galaxy look primitive. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. "All ships retreat," he ordered, "full withdraw." But it was too late. The human fleet had positioned itself perfectly. Every escape route was blocked. Admiral Walsh spoke again. "You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resist and you will be destroyed. Surrender and you will be treated according to the rules of war. Choose now." In the underground shelter on New Vancouver, Lucy Chen held her students close as the shaking stopped. The alert system announced that the threat was over. The Hravik fleet had surrendered. 20 human ships had defeated 200 Hravik warships in 17 minutes with 0 human casualties. Tommy looked up at her with wide eyes. "I told you the protectors were good at their jobs." Lucy laughed. It came out shaky because she was crying. "Yes, Tommy, you were right." Above the planet, Grendak sat in his damaged flagship surrounded by human marines. He had been so certain of victory. Now he understood the terrible truth. Humanity had never needed the Galactic Council's protection. They had been protecting the Council from themselves. The Galactic Council chamber had stood for 3,000 years. Representatives from 47 species gathered here to debate and vote on matters affecting trillions of beings. Today the chamber was completely silent as they watched footage of the Battle of New Vancouver play on the central hologram. Prime Counselor Thress was an avian species called the Valen. Her feathers were pure white with age. She had served on the council for 60 years and thought she had seen everything. Now she watched human warships move through space like predators hunting prey. She watched weapons that should not exist vaporize Hravik cruisers. She watched 200 warships surrender to 20 in less than 20 minutes. How, she whispered, how is this possible? The intelligence briefing that followed was even more disturbing. Analyst after analyst presented data about human military capabilities. All of it had been wrong. Completely, catastrophically wrong. For 40 years, the Council had classified humanity as a Class 3 military power. Decent defensive capabilities but no real offensive threat. That classification had just been shattered. We need to understand what we saw, Thress said. Someone explained to me how a species that joined the galactic community 4 decades ago has weapons that make our own fleets look primitive. Director James Okonkwo sat in the human delegation seat. He had flown to the council station immediately after the battle. Now he stood and faced the assembled aliens. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. "You want to understand?" James asked quietly. "Then let me tell you a story about humanity." He activated his own holographic display. It showed Earth, beautiful blue oceans and green continents. Then the image changed. Cities in ruins, battlefields covered in bodies, mushroom clouds rising over devastation. "This is our history," James said. "For thousands of years we fought each other. We invented better and better ways to kill. We split the atom and turned it into a bomb. We created diseases that could wipe out populations. We built weapons that could end all life on our planet." He paused. "And then we stopped." The hologram showed human colonies spreading across the solar system, ships being built in secret shipyards, scientists working in hidden laboratories. 40 years ago, we made first contact with your civilization. We studied you. We learned about the Galactic Council and the species that make it up. We saw the wars, the slavery, the empires built on conquest, and we made a choice." Thress leaned forward. "What choice?" "We decided to hide our teeth," James replied. "We shared our music and art. We offered medical technology and farming techniques. We presented ourselves as peaceful newcomers who wanted to learn from the older, wiser species." His voice grew harder. "But we never stopped preparing. We built shipyards on the far side of our moon where your satellites could not see them. We constructed bases in asteroid fields throughout our solar system. We developed weapons using principles of physics that we never shared with anyone." A counselor from the reptilian Kryn species stood up angrily. "You lied to us. You deceived the entire council." "Yes," James agreed simply. "We did. Because we learned something from our own history. Peace is not about being harmless. Peace is about being capable of terrible violence and choosing not to use it. We wanted to give you that choice too. We wanted to show you that a species could be strong and still choose cooperation over conquest." Another counselor, this one from the aquatic Delph species, spoke up. Her voice came through a translation device. "But why? Why spend so much effort on weapons you never planned to use?" James looked at her sadly. "Because we know what happens when peaceful species face warlike empires without the ability to defend themselves. We have read your history too. We saw what the Hravik Empire did to the Talvan colonies, what they did to the Rishal homeworld. We saw species enslaved and exterminated because they could not fight back. We promised ourselves we would never be that helpless." He brought up technical specifications for the human dreadnoughts. energy output levels that made the counselors gasp, weapons systems that bent the laws of physics, defensive shields that could absorb star-level energy. Our ships use quantum processing cores. Our weapons fire projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our shields manipulate dimensional fields. We can fold space to move instantly across a battlefield. We can hack any computer system in the galaxy. We can see in spectrums you do not even know exist. James looked around the chamber. And every single advancement we made, we kept secret, not because we wanted to conquer you, but because we wanted you to have time to prove you were better than your history. Thress felt something she had not felt in decades. Fear, real primal fear. What do you want from us? The same thing we always wanted, James said. Peace, trade, cooperation. We have no interest in ruling the galaxy. We have no desire to build an empire. We just want to be left alone to live our lives. His expression became cold. But if species like the Hravik Empire will not allow that, then we will make them stop, permanently if necessary. The chamber erupted into debate. Some species called for immediate alliance with humanity out of fear. Others demanded that human military capabilities be restricted by council law. A few suggested preemptive action before humanity became an unstoppable threat. Thress silenced them all with a gesture. We face a new reality. Humanity is the dominant military power in known space. They have been for decades and we never knew it. The question now is what comes next. On Earth, Admiral Rebecca Walsh was asking herself the same question. She stood in the command center watching as human fleets moved into position throughout human space. The secret was out. Every species in the galaxy now knew that humanity had been hiding its true strength. Some would respond with fear, others with anger. Some might even try to strike first before humanity grew stronger. "Ma'am, we are receiving hundreds of communication requests," her aide reported. Species asking for protection, others demanding explanations. The Hravik Empire is mobilizing its entire navy. Rebecca nodded slowly. She had known this day would come eventually. You could only hide weapons this powerful for so long. Now humanity would have to prove that strength and wisdom could exist together. "Send a message to all human fleets," she ordered. "Maintain defensive positions only. We do not fire unless fired upon. We do not invade. We do not conquer, but we do not back down either." The galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humanity stopped being polite. Emperor Hravish stood in the Hall of Conquest looking at statues of his ancestors. Each one represented a Hravik ruler who had expanded the empire through military might. His father had conquered 7 systems. His grandfather had enslaved 12 species. The weight of that legacy pressed down on him like a physical thing. "Your Majesty, the Council is demanding we negotiate," said his chief advisor, an old general named Drask. "They say we should accept human peace terms and withdraw from disputed territories." Hravish turned and his eyes blazed with fury. "Accept terms. Withdraw. We are the Hravik Empire. We do not bow to anyone, especially not to a species that has been in space for less than a century." "But Majesty, their technology exceeds ours by generations. The Battle of New Vancouver proved that. Our best warships could not scratch their shields. Their weapons cut through our fleet like it was made of cloth." The Emperor slammed his fist against a marble column. "One battle, one ambush where they caught Grendak off guard. Do you really think 20 ships represent their entire fleet? They are bluffing, trying to scare us into submission with a clever trick." Drask hesitated. He had served 3 emperors and survived by knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. But this time silence might doom them all. "Majesty, our intelligence suggests the humans have been building weapons in secret for decades. What we saw at New Vancouver might only be a fraction of their true strength." "Then we will meet their strength with numbers," Hravish declared. "Mobilize the Grand Armada, every warship, every battle carrier, every dreadnought we possess. I want 3,000 ships ready to depart for Earth within the week." The advisor went pale. 3,000 ships. Majesty, that would leave our core worlds undefended if we suffer significant losses. "We will not lose," the Emperor's voice echoed through the hall. "I am calling in every favor. Every vassal species will contribute ships. The Krell will send their assault carriers. The Vorten will provide their cruiser wings. We will assemble a fleet so massive that even human technology cannot stand against it." Drask bowed deeply. He knew better than to argue when the Emperor made a decision. "As you command, Your Majesty, what message should we send to the humans?" Ravish smiled coldly. "Tell them they have one chance to avoid annihilation, total surrender, complete disarmament. Earth becomes a Hravik protectorate. They have 24 hours to comply." When Director James Okonkwo received that message, he read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Then he called President Sarah Martinez. "They are demanding our complete surrender," he told her. "They are mobilizing their entire fleet, 3,000 warships according to our intelligence. They want us to dismantle our military and become their colony." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Send them one more offer. We will forget the attacks. We will provide reparations for the ships we destroyed. We will even help them rebuild. All they have to do is agree to peace and stop threatening us." James composed the message carefully. He included everything Sarah suggested. He made the offer as generous as possible. He sent it with a simple plea: "Please choose peace." Emperor Hravish read the human offer and laughed. "They are begging. They know they cannot win. Send my response: we reject your offer, prepare for war." On Earth, the Security Council gathered in the bunker deep under the Swiss Alps. President Martinez looked tired. She had barely slept since this crisis began. Now she faced a decision that would affect billions of lives. "We have explored every diplomatic option," she said quietly. "We have offered peace. We have offered compensation. We have given them every chance to back down. They refuse. War Master Grendek is leading their Grand Armada directly toward our solar system. Intelligence estimates they will arrive in 6 days." Admiral Rebecca Walsh stood at the tactical display. 3,000 ships is approximately 70% of the Hravik Empire's total military strength. They are gambling everything on this attack. If they win, humanity is finished. If we win, she paused. If we destroy that fleet, we will kill hundreds of thousands of Hravik soldiers. Their empire will collapse. Vassal species will rebel. The political structure of half the galaxy will change overnight. Is there any scenario where we can stop them without massive casualties? Asked the defense minister, an older man named Robert Kim. Rebecca shook her head. Not at this scale. If they attack with 3,000 ships, we will have to hit them with everything we have. Protocol Fenrir was designed for exactly this situation. Overwhelming force against an enemy that refuses all other options. Sarah looked at each council member in turn. I need to know if we have consensus. Protocol Fenrir means we stop holding back completely. We use every weapon we have developed. We show them the absolute worst that humanity is capable of. There is no going back from this decision. One by one they voted, some reluctantly, some with anger, but all of them agreed. The Hravik Empire had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. Admiral Walsh, Sarah said formally, you are authorized to activate Protocol Fenrir. Rules of engagement are clear. You may destroy any Hravik military vessel that enters our territory or refuses to surrender. But remember what we are. We are not conquerors. We do not kill civilians. We do not torture prisoners. We fight like humans, which means we fight with honor even when our enemy does not. Rebecca saluted. Understood, Madam President. The Hravik Empire will regret forcing this choice. 6 days later, War Master Grendek led the Grand Armada into the Sol system. He had been humiliated at New Vancouver and was eager for revenge. His orders were simple: destroy all human military installations, bombard Earth into submission, and make an example that the entire galaxy would remember. His fleet spread out in attack formation, 3,000 warships moving in perfect coordination, enough firepower to crack planets. Grendek opened a channel to Earth demanding immediate surrender. The response was a single word from Admiral Walsh, a word that had meaning in ancient Earth languages, a word that spoke of wolves and winter and the price of pushing too far. Funra. Then space itself seemed to tear apart as humanity stopped being polite. War Master Grundek had fought in 43 battles across his long career. He had commanded fleets that conquered worlds. He understood tactics and strategy and the mathematics of warfare. So when 500 human warships appeared inside his formation without any warning, his first thought was that his sensors had malfunctioned. "Report," he barked at his tactical officer. "Sir, the humans did not travel through normal space. They did not use faster than light drives. They just appeared. One moment empty space, the next moment 500 ships surrounding our entire fleet." Grundek pulled up the tactical display and felt ice in his veins. The human fleet had positioned itself perfectly. Every Hruvok battle group was surrounded. Every escape route was blocked. His 3,000 ships were trapped in a cage they had not even seen being built. Admiral Rebecca Walsh's voice came over every communication channel. It was calm and measured, the voice of someone who had already won and was simply explaining the situation. "War Master Grundek, your fleet is surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be disabled. This is not a negotiation. This is your only chance to minimize casualties. You have 30 seconds to comply." Grundek's pride screamed at him to fight, but he was not stupid. He had seen what 20 human ships did to 200 at New Vancouver. Now he faced 500. Still, he was Hruvok. His entire culture was built on military dominance. Surrender was unthinkable. "All ships engage at will," he ordered. "Target the nearest human vessels. Show them that Hruvok warriors do not yield." The Grand Armada opened fire, 3,000 warships unleashing everything they had, missiles by the tens of thousands, energy beams that could melt asteroids, kinetic rounds moving at impossible speeds. It was the most concentrated firepower ever assembled in one place. It should have overwhelmed any defense. The human ships did not even try to dodge. Their shields absorbed everything, not just blocked it, absorbed it. Energy readings showed the human vessels actually using the incoming fire to recharge their own power systems. They were feeding on the attack. Then humanity fired back. The weapons made no sense. Grundek watched as invisible fields of artificial gravity grabbed his warships and crushed them like empty cans. Rail guns fired projectiles at 40% light speed, punching completely through Hruvok's shields and hulls, and coming out the other side still traveling fast enough to hit the next ship. Energy beams that did not just burn but seemed to erase matter at a molecular level. But the worst weapons were the ones his sensors could barely detect. Swarms of microscopic machines that attached to ships and began taking them apart piece by piece. Computer viruses that spread through entire battle groups in seconds, shutting down weapons and life support. Dimensional weapons that folded space around ships, sending them somewhere else entirely. "Sir, we have lost 200 vessels in the first minute," his tactical officer reported. Her voice was shaking. "Point defense cannot track their projectiles. They are moving too fast. Our shields are useless. Every hit is penetrating, sir. We cannot win this." Grundek watched his fleet die, not slowly in a grinding battle of attrition, quickly, efficiently, like a surgeon removing diseased tissue. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, every action calculated, every shot precise. They were not fighting angry or desperate. They were fighting with the cold efficiency of a species that had perfected warfare and then spent 40 years hiding that perfection. A Hruvok cruiser exploded to his left. A dreadnought went dark as something fried every system. A carrier simply vanished, folded into some dimension where sensors could not follow. His grand armada was being dismantled. All ships retreat, Grundig finally ordered. Emergency jump to Rally Point Sigma. But the human fleet had thought of that too. Something was jamming their faster-than-light drives. Ships that tried to jump just sat there, drives spinning up and failing. The dimensional folding technology humans used did not just move their own ships. It could prevent others from leaving. "Sir, Admiral Walsh is hailing us again." Grundig almost refused. Then he watched another 50 of his ships die in a coordinated strike. Pride would not save anyone now. Put her through. Admiral Walsh appeared on his screen. She was sitting in her command chair looking almost relaxed. Behind her, human officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. No panic, no shouting, just professionals doing their job. War Master Grundig, you were given a chance to power down. You chose to fight. This is what fighting humanity looks like when we stop holding back. Your fleet is down to 2,300 ships. In another 10 minutes you will have less than 1,000. I am offering you one final chance. Surrender now. Power down all weapons. Eject your antimatter cores. Deploy emergency beacons. My fleet will disable your ships without destroying them. You and your crews will be taken prisoner and treated according to the rules of war. Refuse and we will continue until your fleet is debris. Grundig looked at the tactical display. His ships were dying at a rate of 10 per minute. The human fleet had not taken a single casualty, not one damaged ship. This was not a battle. This was an execution. "Why are you offering mercy?" he asked bitterly. "You could kill us all easily. Why let us live?" Rubika's expression was hard to read. "Because we are human. We do not kill when we can capture. We do not torture when we can treat with respect. We do not conquer when we can build peace. You mistook that for weakness. You thought our kindness meant we were soft." She leaned forward. "We are not soft, War Master. We are the species that learned to split atoms and pointed it at our own cities. We are the species that invented diseases that could end all life and then chose not to use them. We know exactly how terrible we can be. That is why we choose to be better, but you have forced our hand." Grundig looked at his crew, young Hruvok warriors who believed in the Empire's might. Now they were trapped in disabled ships waiting to die or surrender. He had led them here. His pride had done this. "All Hruvok vessels," he spoke into the fleet channel. "Power down weapons. Eject antimatter cores. Prepare to be boarded. We surrender." Across the battlefield, Hruvok ships went dark. Human boarding teams moved in with medical supplies and engineers. Prisoners were treated with care. Wounded were given treatment. It was the most efficient military operation in galactic history, and the most merciful. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy looked very different. The Hruvok Empire had collapsed in a matter of weeks. Emperor Hruvush was in exile on a remote colony world, his government replaced by a council of reformed leaders. 18 species that had been conquered by the Hruvok were now free. They called it Liberation Day, and many of them celebrated with festivals that honored humanity as saviors. Director James Okonkwo did not feel like a savior. He stood in the memorial garden on Earth looking at the wall of names. 847 people who died at Neptune Station. Thousands more who died in previous Hruvok attacks. All the lives that might have been saved if humanity had revealed its strength sooner. Second-guessing yourself. Admiral Rubika Walsh walked up beside him. She was out of uniform for once, wearing simple civilian clothes. "Every day," James admitted. "We had the power to stop them years ago. How many people died because we chose to hide?" Rubika looked at the names carved in stone. "And how many wars did we prevent by appearing weak? How many species decided not to attack us because they thought we were harmless? We will never know the battles we avoided. We can only judge the choices we made with the information we had." A memorial service was beginning nearby. Families of the Neptune Station victims gathered to remember their loved ones. James and Rebecca stood silently as names were read aloud. When it finished, they walked together through gardens filled with flowers from a dozen different worlds. The Galactic Council wants to restructure, Rebecca said. They are offering Earth a permanent seat on the Security Council, not asking, offering, because they are too afraid to do anything else. Fear is not respect, James replied. No, but it is a start. Give them time. Let them see that we use our power responsibly. Eventually, fear can become trust. On the other side of the galaxy, War Master Grendak sat in a rehabilitation center designed by humans. It was not a prison. There were no bars or guards, just comfortable rooms and counselors who spoke to Hravik prisoners about processing trauma and finding new purpose. Grendak hated it. He would have preferred a dark cell where he could nurse his bitterness. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Admiral Walsh entered without waiting for permission. She carried 2 cups of something that smelled pleasant. Tea, she explained, handing him one. An earth drink. I thought we could talk. Grendak wanted to throw the cup at her. Pride demanded it, but he was tired of pride. Pride had led his empire to ruin. He took the cup and sipped carefully. It was surprisingly good. Why did you spare us? He asked. The question had haunted him for months. You could have destroyed our entire fleet, killed us all, ended the Hravik Empire completely. Why show mercy to an enemy that showed you none? Rebecca sat across from him. Because we know what it is like to be consumed by revenge. Humanity fought wars for thousands of years. We killed each other over religion, resources, territory, pride. We built weapons that could end our entire species and came terrifyingly close to using them. We learned something from all that bloodshed. What did you learn? Grendak asked bitterly. That strength without wisdom is just violence. That winning a war means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. That the hardest thing in the universe is not destroying your enemy. It is showing mercy when you have the power to destroy them. She looked at him directly. You thought our kindness was weakness. You were wrong. Kindness when you have no choice is just survival. Kindness when you could easily destroy is true strength. Grendak was quiet for a long moment. What happens now to my people? That depends on them. The old government is gone. The empire is dissolved. But Hravik people still exist. They still have worlds and cultures and futures ahead of them. They can choose to rebuild as partners in the galactic community, or they can choose bitterness and isolation. We will not force them either way. And me? Rebecca smiled slightly. You have knowledge of military tactics and strategy, experience commanding large forces. When your rehabilitation is complete, several freed species have asked if you might advise their new defense forces. Help them build militaries capable of protecting their independence. Interested. The idea was so unexpected that Grendak actually laughed. You want me to help defend against threats like the empire I served? I want you to have a chance to do something meaningful with your skills. Everyone deserves that chance, even former enemies. On Earth, President Sarah Martinez addressed the United Earth Assembly for the last time. Her term was ending and she had chosen not to run again. The stress of the war had aged her visibly. We revealed ourselves to the galaxy out of necessity, she said to the assembled representatives. We showed them weapons we hoped never to use. We demonstrated power we wished we did not need. But we also showed them something else. We showed them that strength and compassion are not opposites, that you can be the most powerful force in the galaxy and still choose peace first. She paused and looked around the chamber. The Galactic Council now looks to us for leadership. Dozens of species have requested human protection. Some call us the new empire, but we must never become that. We must never forget why we built our weapons in the first place. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to defend, to protect the innocent, to give others the choice we wished we had been given, the choice to live free from fear. The assembly erupted in applause. Sarah stepped down from the podium feeling lighter than she had in months. Her successor would face new challenges. The galaxy would test humanity in new ways, but she believed they were ready. Admiral Rebecca Walsh stood on the observation deck of the Orbital Defense Station watching Earth spin slowly below. Ships came and went from the planet, trade vessels from 100 species, diplomatic shuttles, science expeditions. The dream of humanity joining the galactic community was finally real, just not in the way anyone expected. Her communicator chimed. Another request for help, a small species being threatened by pirates. Before the war, such a request would have been ignored. Now it came straight to human command. Dispatch a patrol group, she ordered. Rules of engagement are clear. Defend the innocent. Offer surrender before firing. Treat prisoners with dignity. As the human ships moved to respond, Rebecca thought about the future. Humanity had become the galaxy's reluctant police force, protectors who never wanted the job but could not refuse it, because they had learned something that many species still struggled to understand. Peace was not the absence of violence. Peace was having the strength to destroy and choosing not to. And humanity would keep making that choice, every single day, for as long as it took for the rest of the galaxy to learn the same lesson. The final warning had been given. The consequences had been shown. Now came the harder work, teaching the galaxy what humanity had learned through centuries of bloodshed, that the strongest warriors were the ones who knew when not to fight.